welcome back to the Innovative Leader podcast. And you are joining David Phillips and Christy Geiger. David, good to see you.
You too.
All right, awesome. So today we are talking about vision casting. And vision is an interesting word because it's a very old term. For a long time in business, we've done vision, mission, values, and whatnot. I would say maybe 10 years ago, values was really hot because values were changing from more corporate values to more personal values and value statements and things like that. So today what we're talking about really is vision, because it's an interesting time to circle back and relook at your vision. And because things continue to change, and if you've been following us, you know that we talk about this 2.0 era, 3.0 and 4.0. And so as we move into the industry 4.0, with the changes that are happening and changes in business, changes in the industry, changes in innovation, changes in generations and how we operate, we really have an opportunity to go back and look at our visions. And the vision for our organizations, the vision for ourselves as individuals, your career path, your business that you're growing or developing, whatever it is, vision is covered in all of that. So what is your vision and where are you headed? So today we want to talk a little bit about that. What does it mean to have a vision? How do you create it? Sometimes we can get overwhelmed and just frozen, and how do we create that vision? So talking about how to create the vision and then keeping that vision alive once we create it. How do you get that buy-in, things like that? So David, when you think about vision and what's important, how do you, to me, one of the hard things with vision is you could say, like I was just thinking, you could say to your kid, hey, we're going to the grocery store, and they're like, yes. And why do they say yes? You're running in there to get bread for dinner. They're thinking something else. And that's what happens with vision, is a lot of times we communicate the same words, but people think different things. And so our excitement or our fear or our anxiety about what that vision is conjured up based on what it means to us. But a lot of times that's silent. So what do you think about how do we cast vision? How do we get this shared vision where everyone's actually on the same page? How does that come about?
Well, so vision really, in so many instances, it comes out of a pain point. Whether it's you need something and you don't have it, so you you have to create it. Something bad happens to you, and so now you're on a mission. You have a vision to create an organization or a nonprofit that's going to, kind of help other people going through those same things. In so many ways, vision really is a function of a pain point. And so I think in that regard, you help other people understand that pain point, and then build on, tell the stories of that, and then use that to help rally people. You've got the storying going on, so people are drawn in emotionally. They're drawn in. They're connected to that. They can feel the pain in some cases. They can feel the need in other cases, so they can see that. So you have to, I think you have to build the stories, not lie, actual stories. Of how that, of what you're trying to do looks like. And I think one of the things you do is you start with, this is what is, and this is what could be. And so you move back and forth in that regard of saying, this is the reality, this is the situation, and now this is what our product can do, our service can do, how it can meet needs, and how it can not just meet needs, but transform the lives of people. I think oftentimes we get into very technical vision statements. We get into very I can't think of another word, but it's those vision statements that really don't emote anything. They're just words, and words on the page. And so I think you have to engage people emotionally with the story of what could be and how it could change lives. And then I think you have to retell that story every 90 days, retell one of those stories every 90 days or so, because what you're doing in that sense is you're keeping those stories in the front of people's minds on a consistent basis over and over again. You tell them in a different way, you tell a slightly different story, and you build a whole book of stories of how your organization or your product or your ministry is affecting the lives of people. How about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's big, right? It's kind of like the whole vision package, right? Is like that, what it is and making it happen. So what about going back to the beginning? Because I agree with you. It's kind of creating what's possible. It is moving people. A vision is kind of a shared desire. We want
Right.
to be here. So how are we going to get there? So you're kind of saying it as if the vision is already determined. So let's talk about like, what is a vision if it's not determined, if you're trying to figure it out. So let's say that you had a business and it had a vision and it was fine, but now COVID happened and the millennial tipping in the workplace is happening.
Right.
So that vision that you had that you've been writing has been great. However, on some level, it's not really serving anymore. And you kind of like it because that vision worked, but it doesn't connect anymore. So the people who are coming into the workforce with you, they don't seem to resonate with that vision as much, or they're looking for something different. And I think that's kind of what's happening with millennials right now. Is it's not that they're demanding. They don't go into a workplace and say, hey, you need to have a better vision. They go, hey, what are you guys up to here? Okay, cool. How can we make a difference here? Can I make a difference here? Do you want to hear my voice? Okay, great. Can I contribute? Can I add value? Awesome. The more space I have, the more I stay. The more space I don't, the more I'm going to move on. So they don't need you to have a great vision, but if you don't have a great vision, they're moving on. So you may not have a problem with your vision, but you may notice people keep moving on. You have a challenge with retention. Gotcha. You have a challenge with engagement. You maybe are not as relevant in what you're serving anymore, even though you really like, I mean, goodness, you've been working for 10, 20 years to finally get your processes and systems where they're at. So usually businesses that are in whatever vision happens at all different kinds of levels, starting from ground zero. But I think it's challenging when you're in an organization who actually has been operating and then you're refreshing your vision. That's hard because it's not that the leader just goes, oh my gosh, I had this epiphany, let's do this. Usually this evolution of a vision, how do you figure that out?
So at that point, I think you start talking to stakeholders. I think you do you spend some time working with them. So and that's your customers, that's your internal people, that's the community you're trying to impact or reach. It's the marketplace, and so you interact with them, and then you build the vision out of kind of this merge of what they're looking for and what you can deliver, and what you can do. And then you build that vision by incorporating their stories, and you share that vision by incorporating their stories and their pain points and their ideas. And so when you do that, then it's a corporate, it's a shared vision, amongst all the people, and they're at that point they're engaged. Oh, look, they're telling my story. The millennial says they're telling my story. The customer is saying they're telling my story. The vendors are saying they're telling our story. And so I think it starts with listening. That vision, that refresh starts with listening, and then seeing what is needed, listening with with ears toward the future, hearing and seeing what they need, and then putting in place the things that you can deliver that meet those needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start telling their stories in light of that vision, so you engage everyone.
Mm-hmm. Right. So your vision is futuristic in that it shares what is possible.
Right.
Your vision looks and connects the dots between what we can do, what we do well, and how we can serve and help the needs that our vendors, customers, and the market has. So what we can do to serve you, what we can do to help others, that kind of a thing is what your vision is expressing.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you get into things like other things like value statements and things like that that really kind of are different than, in my mind, than vision. I think, if you want to, I think vision is a now and future telling of how you're going to engage others with what you can do best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree. I think it also is who you're being and who you're becoming. So your vision is a target of what you're aiming at something. I like thinking of vision also as a North Star, and that your North Star is way out there. And so in order to get to the North Star, there's lots of things that you're going to have to do to shoot for the moon, so to speak. And it is big and it's out there. You're going to need to have some milestones. But what I also think about with vision is it becomes that focal point that everybody's looking at. So we see that star, and when we're wandering around down here in the world in our trenches and in our task and what we're doing, we can kind of look up and we're like, oh yeah, that's the direction we're headed. So if I get turned around because I'm doing something, whatever, I can recenter myself back to that vision. And the vision becomes a focal point to guide me in my activity and in my planning to keep moving towards that North Star.
Okay.
And then the other thing that's kind of interesting about a vision like a North Star being that focal point or that guide point is that I think it's cool to think about rays of light that comes out of the North Star. And that when you think about an organization, a lot of times we can go, oh, here's the vision. And then everyone goes back to their silos and does as they see fit. And right. why are we confused that the vision doesn't happen? Because everyone was like, thank you, CEO, that's a nice vision. And they go back to their silos and they do what they were doing before as if it has nothing to do with the vision. Or they take the vision document with them and they're like, oh yeah, our vision is to reach this population or to do this, but it's not integrated. So to me, when it's integrated, you have your North Star, and every ray that comes out of that North Star, whether it's your customer service, your sales, your operations, your retention, your engagement, or your team building, whatever, all of those stars that come out of this North Star are directly connected to that North Star, which is made up of your values, and it's made up of your vibe and your essence, your message, your style, your priorities, and what you're really all about, which is why I like it being about your being. And so when you're connected to the North Star, it changes the way that you act and operate. So you can't have a vision as if here's the vision and here's me. No, you have to have your vision is intricate or integral to what I'm doing. So then as a person who's applying that, maybe that moves a little bit to the next question. No, it doesn't move actually the next question. It's something totally different. But anyway, whatever. So your vision as a leader, I have to take that vision and go, how does this apply to my division? So if I am working in human resources, or I'm working in hiring, or I'm working in retention, or I'm working in operations, how does that vision affect the way that we do things. And so this vision that we're setting becomes this guiding North Star. And going back to the beginning, when we're talking about, a kid going to the grocery store or whatever, if I hear, oh, we're about excellence or whatever it is, right? What does that mean? Because if excellence doesn't mean the same thing to all of the divisions, and we all go back to our silos and we try to apply it the way we see fit, we're setting ourselves up for offense, because I'm going to get offended when I've worked really hard to employ excellence in my division, but that's not, you're over there in IT because you're an IT guy, right? So you're in IT, I'm in human resources, and I've worked really hard to apply that. But then, sorry, Kai was leaving. Okay, so I've worked hard to apply it in my division. You worked hard to apply it in your division, but we actually were looking at different stars. We both were looking at what excellence means to us. We applied it in a way based on what excellence means, but we didn't actually apply it as the North Star defines excellence. And I think that's really the challenge with vision casting. Is simple vision casting is, hey, we're going to California on a road trip. But in order to kind of paint a better vision, we have to really understand the essence of what does that mean and what does that look like, so that each part of the team and the leaders in an organization can all be focusing on that North Star, and the rays that come out from the North Star are little areas that we all work on are actually matching the North Star, rather than it's this arbitrary destination. And I just think that vision sometimes gets squishy because it feels like it's it versus it's kind of it's more than the cornerstone. It is the essence. It's the framework in which we build everything on.
So the question, I think, is defining the terms, because I guess let me back up. What is the difference between vision and mission? Because like the North Star for me is the mission. Like that's ultimately why I exist, and the vision is how I accomplish that at certain intervals of time. That makes sense. And I think that's why vision and mission get real squishy, is because different people view those terms obviously in different ways. And so for me, I see the difference in mission. I see that the mission being the North Star and vision being how are the stops on the way to get there. That's just kind of the way I understand the vision and mission.
So the way I would say it is, to me, the reason why I call it a North Star is because I see vision as a destination that changes. So you set a destination for a period of time in which you set your sights to this destination, and then you aspire to that destination, that vision. Versus the way I see mission is something that's unchanging. So for example, I would see mission more as the rocket ship that you're using to get to the North Star, or the vehicle that you're in, because while your vehicle can even evolve as well, typically our mission is more unchanging. And by being, I guess it sounds a little confusing because it's like who we are, but so I think I'm saying you could use the same words in both contexts, but what I mean by that is by the being of who you are, the essence of who you are doesn't fundamentally change. That's not changing. But sometimes there is a second being, which that sounds confusing now that I'm saying that, but there's a way that it's kind of like, for example, if I am, let's take, I'm trying to think of a business example. So let's say in business that fundamentally who I am, I'm going to use one of my clients. So one of my clients is a landscape client. And so their mission, who they are, is a landscaping company. Fundamentally, that's who they are. What they do, it's kind of like, what do you do? Sometimes becomes our definition. So fundamentally, who they are is more that noun that defines them. of they're a landscape company. They provide landscaping, they do land design, maintenance and creation. So that's who they are. That's the mission that's unchanging. But the part of the being that is changing is maybe at this time and place, they're more innovative. And maybe they recognize there's some shifts happening in the industry that cause them to need to be innovative landscapers versus 20 years ago, they were really more maintenance landscapers. Like we just needed to maintain a really clean look and that's all that was important. But today, or maybe better is green. And obviously the green industry and landscaping has been around a long time, right. But we may say that right now with the movements in energy efficiency and all of that, that it becomes more important for a landscaping company to be innovative and to understand green technology and to be integrating green technology. So the core being of who they are as a landscaper, which is connected to the mission, and that doesn't change. Their North Star, where they're headed to, who they're becoming, who they're being. So that same word, but how I'm using it separately, who their being is more of an adjective, not the noun. They're being innovative, they're being creative, they're being adaptive. They're being, progressive and futuristic in order to understand the trends and to meet the changing need of society today. So going back to what you were saying, you are surveying your customers or your market and you're understanding what's changing in your customer and market base, which is influencing your vision. So if I were like this and I didn't, my head down and I'm not really looking out, I don't know what's going on. But when I'm in touch with my customers, when I'm in touch with my team, I'm in touch with the world around me, I understand, oh, you know what? People actually do care about things being more economic and people are concerned about climate and they are wondering how what they do in their yard is affecting that or whatever the belief system is. It doesn't really matter. The point is that there's a way that you are in touch with your market. And so then that may affect your being. So your being vision is this adjective being vision. It's how we're showing up. We're being innovative and creative. Our North Star is to be a very progressive company that is looking at auto mowers and we're looking at electric mowers and we're looking at moving away from gas because we believe that that's important for our team and our environment and our customers. So this is how we're showing up. To me, that's a North Star vision. Now, what does it have to do with your team and with everyone else? So when we're hiring, if I hire someone who is old fashioned, still in the old, and I'm saying old fashioned in that, I just have been using gas mowers for 20 years. That was fine. But now in our new vision, in our North Star, we're saying we don't want to do that. We're moving away from that because we believe this is important. So if I hire someone who's like, that's stupid, I don't even believe any of that. I just want to use this power mower and you're making me have to work harder because now I got to charge this battery. I don't want to do that. And they have an attitude about it. They're not really on board with the North Star. Now, heaven forbid, that's your operations manager who feels that way, because how's your operations manager going to be aligning operations to that North Star of becoming an innovative, futuristic, and creative organization? They're not, because they don't get it. But if they understand this is who we're being and becoming, this is what we desire, that becomes that North Star of where we're going, how we're evolving, changing, and migrating, versus that vehicle that we're in, landscape company. We were that 20 years ago, we were that 40 years ago, and we're still that today. It's an unchanging truth of who we are. That's our vehicle. But how we're aspiring to go, to me, that's your vision.
All right. I think that's part of the difficulty in really coming to grips with putting together a vision statement is there's so much that you just unpacked there, that it makes it difficult. It makes it, and it's a lot of work.
Right.
This is who I want to be, and this is the way I want the organization to run. This is how I have spent time with the stakeholders, and this is what I've heard, and this is how we can move forward. that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And and if you're a small organization, that's compounded by the other things that you have to do.
Right.
And yet, if you don't do it, then you're like that Geico. Have you seen the Geico commercial where the guy's on a motorcycle and he's riding around on the side of the mountain, and then he comes back to reality, and he's the guy who's doing the lines for a baseball field, and he's actually got these white lines all around the baseball field, and he says, "You think anybody will notice, that the lines weren't put down right?" Because you're like,
Right.
you're just meandering through life at that point.
Right. Well, and also part of that, I think that's where it gets into the shared vision. And to me, the greatest challenge. So how do you create that vision that people understand, even though we're saying the same words, that we're not talking past each other, but then this shared vision in order to implement it is that where somebody is working hard. How often does that happen? Where as a team, you're working hard, you're doing your best, like he spent his time doing it, in the moment. Let's just put the best construction on it. He wasn't, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like, let's say that he was doing his very best work, and 8 hours later, he's done striping the field and the lines are crooked. Now, you could have that leader who comes in and is like, wow, the lines are crooked. We need to make those straight. And you could be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. You have this ridiculous excellence standard.
Right.
People get upset of micromanaging, of the bar being too high, an unrealistic standard. And I think that goes back to the vision, because it is a standard. Like, how crooked can a line be? Is this the Pee Wee League that it doesn't really matter and we're just glad some line is down? Or does it need to be straight, and what's straight? And I think that goes back to the definitions, that there's kind of this vision, and what does this mean, or what does this look like, becomes really important in order to have accountability to the vision. Otherwise, it's like I was saying before, you spend all this energy rolling out a vision, and then really everyone goes and does as they see fit. Right. Not because they're being disrespectful of your vision, but because they don't understand. They're applying it in the way that they think you meant it to be applied. They didn't have enough definition to know how to make that shining ray come out of the star, right? It wasn't really connected. It was independent, just with the vision information.
Right. And what even makes that more difficult is when the organization sees the leaders not caring about the vision that they have tried to portray or to try to communicate. Right. So there's got to be credibility and integrity in following the vision of the leader, right, to kind of set that standard. Otherwise, if people watch you, a few years ago, Microsoft was in pretty big trouble at some point. Ballmer was president, those kinds of things. And one of the things that they had silos. You had the Windows operating system piece, you had the gaming division, and you had the services division, like database servers and those kinds of things. And then you had like the Office division, so Microsoft Office, Excel, those kinds of things. And everybody knew when push come to shove, from a money standpoint or a resource standpoint, the operating system division was always going to get it. It didn't matter. But that wasn't part of their vision. But that was what happened. And it created a lot of disgruntled employees. You work hard, you've got a deadline, you're trying to get these pieces out, and then things get pulled out from under you because, oh no, those resources, we got to go fix something over here in the operating system. And so you had low morale as a part of all of that. And so you have to, as leaders, not only department leaders, but organizational leaders, CXO leaders, C-suite leaders, you've got to live that vision in addition to just trying to communicate it. Yeah, and I think that helps the buy-in to the vision as a whole. If you're gonna create it, and you want people to buy into it, you've got to live it and demonstrate it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of work on your part, on everybody's part. It's a work, and it takes a lot of effort.
I think that's really another shift that's happening in this 2-3-4 era too, that I believe in the, every vision, I think, obviously is well intended on some level, right? Like you're like, this is what we need to do, whatever. Like a business owner, business leader setting that vision is obviously doing that with some amount of information that this is what's needed for the organization. To your point though, there's not always a willingness. Sometimes I'll say, like, are you willing to do the hard work? Yes, you can't really set a vision that you're not willing to do the hard work, which is another reason why I think the vision clarity has to be so sharp. Because essentially, if that's our vision, what is the hard work that's needed in order to do that? What is the integrity that's needed from the leaders? What is the authenticity that's needed from the leaders? Because sometimes I think that, again, this is that misunderstanding. I think sometimes a leader can set a vision and then the team can be looking at it and they goes, oh, if we are saving money because we're putting it into R&D, why is he still staying at that 4-star hotel or whatever it is, right? Where an employee, whatever, and that's really 2.0. I personally am like on employee language. To me, your team members, employees, 2.0, 3.0. Yeah. But anyway, because it's kind of 2.0 thinking. Like if we're looking and we're like, okay, check, here's our vision. And then the leaders do whatever they want to do. And the employees sit there and they're judging. And, this is not congruent, whatever. That's really in that 2-3 organization versus in that 4.0 organization. Really, there's greater congruency and intercongruency where the leader is not on top and everybody else is underneath. The leader's right in there in the mix with the team, which I think does go into creating shared vision. What is it that we as a collective group see as the needs of the market? What is that we as a collective group feel is important as the pivots and the shifts that our organization needs to make in order to serve the need of our team, what we do best, and the need of our customers and those that we serve. And so when you're looking at those things, you actually have that shared vision, and the leader isn't on top for everyone to crucify because they've been out of integrity, because heaven forbid they tied their shoes wrong that day and everybody else gets to be in the peanut gallery to, lace them up by their toes, but which is the pro con of 2.0. But in 4.0, we're really you're collectively creating this shared vision. And it is part of this shared passion and this shared desire of an organization, because together we see a collective need. Together we see a collective opportunity. So, and that's one of the challenges of 2 and 3. It required the leader to sell the vision. That's not true in 4.0.
Right.
Because in 4.0, if you're in that group, you're in the pod together with your team, and you're not just serving them. That would be 2 and 3. Really, 3.0 is serving your team. 2.0 didn't ask. 4.0, you're sitting there with them. You're like, what are you noticing? What are you seeing? But it requires developing a culture that isn't a me selfish culture, because that's a 2.0 culture, where I'm waiting for the organization to take care of me. I feel like if they're not going to, I'm out of here. That's a different transactional type style from the 2 and 3 eras. In the 4.0 era, really we want to move to co-creating a vision based on need, based on purpose, based on opportunity. And as we co-create the vision, we are speaking more of a common language, because there's not a fear of asking questions, and there's not a lack of describing, what does it mean to you? Right. How do you see that happening? What does it mean to me? How do I see that happening? Everybody is candidly and openly sharing what it means to them. So now when we deploy and we go back to our different divisions, and you start implementing this in IT and I start implementing it in HR, our minds are still this collective North Star of what that vision looks like, because we co-created it. But if we don't co-create it, we have to sell it. And so I guess, maybe in talking about vision, there are difference in vision depending if you're creating it in the 2.0
Right.
style, 3.0, or 4.0. And I do think a little bit that some of our vision making today is a little archaic, and we still create it at the top and then we try to roll it down and get buy-in, which requires those things of being authentic and all of that.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, there are so many more 2.0 organizations than
Totally.
4, and yeah, and the leader has to sell that, which is quite unfortunate. From so many different levels, and we've talked about a lot of that already.
Yeah.
So we're running up, but we're bumping up against some time here. Did we answer all the questions?
I don't know. Today is laundry. That's the way vision can be. What is the vision? We talked about that. So I don't know. I guess bottom line, I don't know. You summarize that. Like, I feel bottom line, the vision is the North Star. It's everybody. It's co-creating from your team, understanding what are the needs for the future, and selflessly, for the sake of service, that we understand how do we serve the world in a way that makes a difference with our core skills. What is that core car that we're in, and then where are we headed? And then based on where we're headed, who do we need to be? We need to be cheerleaders. We need to be champions.
Right.
We need to be innovators. We need to be, servants, whatever it is, but it affects that adjective of how we're showing up in the world. And then we take that and we bring that back into our organization, and you keep it alive by measuring it, and you keep it alive by finding out what those core requirements are, and you keep measuring. Are we being energetic? Are we being innovative? Are we adapting, or are we drifting back to where we were? But I don't know. Sorry, you take a stab at that summary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just, here's one question that's always run through my mind, and we've talked a lot about feedback. And this is just real quick, but a lot of organizations build, like, we're going to have a 5-year. Some people call it vision. Some people call it a strategy. To me, vision adapts based on the constant influx of information within the system. Now, that doesn't mean you're changing course every 6 months. It doesn't mean you're changing course every year. It just means this goes back. So many people, and I've seen it far too often, where they'll get an idea, they hear something, oh, now we're going to go do this, and then 6 months later, oh, now we're going to go do that. Now, what I'm talking about is, you kind of set this course, and then as you're constantly listening and gathering feedback, you tweak things, right? It's not wholesale changes. You tweak things. So instead of making, I'm going to have a 5-year vision, we're going to have a 5-year vision to do this. Well, what if 2 years down the road, nobody wants that anymore? And nobody cares about it anymore. Your employees don't care about it. Your market doesn't care about it. And so I think when you kind of set set it up so that there's this constant feedback from all different, you can make small tweaks and still maintain this vision of the future. And it may wobble a little bit, but it's still going this way. Does that make sense? Just simply because you're making real-time adjustments, or you're making adjustments in short segments to keep that, the whole keep that system alive. So I want to caution against. For me, I want to caution against putting a 5-year vision together, so that and you stick to that vision and nothing changes. And to me, that's, in this day and age, as information turns over, less than, we double our information in less than a year these days. You just can't do that.
Very.
So
I think that's huge. I wouldn't even say 5. To me, right now, it's 1 to 3 year visions, and 3 because some things you just can't develop it that fast. So you have to have 3 years. So you're kind of 1 to 3, but you recognize by the time you get to 3, the cheese is likely moved. You're
Yeah.
still headed north, but maybe a slight different, direction, but still generally north. And the other thing that I think that kind of tips on, and I know we have to wrap up, but I really think it tips on, a lot of times people want to have everything figured out before they start that vision. And it's not realistic.
Right.
You set yourself up to never actually accomplish any vision, because you end up just doing what you do at 0, and you never get off 0 because you spend the whole time trying to figure it out. So vision, that North Star, you don't know what the North Star looks like. You haven't even been there. So you're not defining all the details of the North Star. You see it as a destination, and you see it as a concept, and you begin moving in that direction. And like you said, as you go, you have to hold it loosely, because things change along the way. The star probably even moved along the way. So it is not rigid. It is a very organic process. So you have to lean into the organicness of it, where you set your destination, everybody understands what it means, but then you hold it loosely. Totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I would say that, from a summary idea that we'll try our shot at, take a shot at it too. That vision is something that is co-created by understanding who you are, that is, and through listening to various stakeholders within your organization, and even outside the organization, from the market to the vendors to the customers, and then to your own internal employees. You co-create that through active listening, and then you develop 1 to 3 year vision to move toward where you're trying to head, where you're trying to what you're trying to do, where you're trying to become. And with the understanding that things are going to need to be tweaked on a consistent basis. And that sounds real squishy for a lot of people, because there's no set in stone definition and understanding, and we do X, Y, and we get Z.
Right.
And that makes it to the people, it's hard work. And even personally, and if you think about it organizationally, but even personally, just having that vision as well. I mean, that's hard work as well. So that's the best I can come up with.
It's really interesting. Right. But you're right. Even personally, when you think about it, Mikhaili is looking at what she wants to do with her career or whatever. And on one hand, you could be like, okay, what is the job I'm getting? Yeah. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what is your career path, because you're headed that direction, but you're not close enough. We're not trying to land the rocket ship on the North Star, for heaven's sakes. Like, you're just headed in that direction. And so I think you're right. Like, sometimes you want to get so definitive in creating that vision that we miss the vision, and we spend too long doing it, that we get overwhelmed, versus get your general concept, understand where you're headed, make sure everyone's on the same page, and get going.
Yep, absolutely. That's a pretty good summary to me.
I love it. All right. Well, I feel like we've had a open conversation about vision. It'd be interesting. There's tons of course, videos and definitions. And I do think it is one of the debated things. What is vision? What is mission? Even among consultants, will sit there and banter on the fine hair differences of mission and vision, which to the unfortunate common person just trying to go, what the heck is vision? It can be hard. So anyway, maybe there has been a takeaway or a thought that stood out to you. Put it in the comments. Maybe there's something that helps you when you're setting your vision. And again, think about vision in the current day. Current day vision is a little bit different than vision 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So what is different about vision today is important to chew on and to understand.
Absolutely. And leave us some comments, share some, share things in the comments section, whether it's YouTube or on the audio podcast. We'd love to hear from you, get an idea of how you define vision, how you think about those things, and what you're doing to put those together. because it is something we all struggle with sometimes. So, all righty. Well, I know we've all both got to run, and I hope you have a great week. It was great talking with you again today, Christy.
Likewise. All right. Y'all take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.